And Veronica Sherman.
A week ago, I was invited to the Free Palestine Melbourne barbecue, and I was looking around at all these different people. We come from different countries, different religions, different backgrounds, and I thought to myself, these are my people. These are the people that I have landed with after a decade of unraveling from Zionism. I might not like all of them, I might not agree with everything everyone thinks or believes, but these are my people. These are my family. That night, a horrific mass shooting took place on Bondi Beach. It has shaken all of us as individuals and as a country. And in this week, since then, some voices have been amplified and other voices have been silenced. So I'm using this opportunity to amplify a Palestinian voice. It's a woman that I deeply respect, and I hope that one day I can vote for her to be in some sort of leadership because she's incredible. If you don't already follow Randa Abdel Fattah, then please do. There are some of you who are quickly surrendering to the agenda of those who are using a horrific act of anti-Semitism to perpetrate the entrenched anti-Palestinian racism. If you're abandoning the Palestinian struggle for freedom, justice, and liberation now, if your response to two lone individuals committing murder is to regret joining hands with Palestinians in protesting and organizing against the genocide, if you witnessed 2 years of Israel's industrialized mass slaughter and deliberate starvation of a defenseless, besieged civilian population, and are still unable to distinguish between Zionism and Judaism, then I'm afraid you were never an ally. You were never truly anti-racist. You were never really listening to Palestinians and anti-Zionist Jews. I'm afraid it is you who has been recruited as an agent of anti-Semitism. Palestinians and Arabs have borne witness to Israel kill an estimated 680,000 of our kith and kin in Gaza. How many stadiums can we fill with the infants and children that Israel deliberately killed? And now, because two individuals carried out an act of mass murder against Jews, we are being told that the problem is not that Israel deliberately instrumentalizes Judaism in service of Zionism, or that the Israeli political project makes Jews everywhere unsafe. No, the problem is that we Palestinians refuse to suffer in silence. As snipers aim at our children's chests, newborns are left to decompose in bombed hospitals, and prisoners are raped by dogs. We refuse to accept the demand made of us that Palestinian and Arab lives are worth less than Jewish lives, that Palestinians are not worthy of life or freedom. We are to blame because we refuse to surrender. Now is the time to insist on principles, not abandon them. To see through the shameful and dangerous political exploitation of the murder of 16 people by Zionists, white supremacists, and the far right to advance their racist, violent, and oppressive agendas. Nobody is free until we all are free. Mean it when you say it, defend it. That is the only principle that matters. And because we're here specifically to talk about the bullshit agenda that Julian Segal is trying to push, and there's someone who's much better at formulating the words for this, and it's Caitlin Johnston. So I'm going to read out her words, and if you don't follow her online, please do. If you're not free to oppose a genocide, your society is not free. If the right to free speech does not include the right to oppose an act of genocide using strong and unmitigated language, then there is no freedom of speech. This is exactly the sort of thing that freedom of speech is intended for. Times when the government is doing something wrong which needs to be ferociously opposed. That's the primary reason it's an enshrined value in our society. Freedom of speech is for holding the powerful to account. If you only have freedom of speech when you're agreeing with your government and saying nothing which inconveniences the powerful, then Saudi Arabia has free speech. Every tyrannical regime that has ever existed has had free speech by those standards. You don't measure a society's freedom by how much its citizens are allowed to agree with their government. You measure it by how much they're allowed to disagree. And right now, we're being told that we're not allowed to disagree. We're being told that protests need to stop. The anti-genocide chants need to be criminalized and everyone needs to shut up and obey. All justified by the completely baseless narrative that the words and actions of pro-Palestinians activists were somehow responsible for a terrible massacre that was committed in Sydney last week. And these policies just so happen to serve the interests of the very same Western powers whose genocide-enabling actions were being forcefully opposed these last 2 years. Government officials who were constantly being protested and questioned about their facilitation of Israel's genocidal atrocities. Politicians who are consistently confronted by anti-genocide demonstrators during their public appearances. Wealthy arms manufacturers whose profit margins are being harmed by direct action from activist groups. Plutocratic media institutions who are becoming more and more discredited in the public eye as the Gaza Holocaust exposes them all. Billionaires whose empires built upon the political status quo that gave rise to the genocide in question. If the powerful are shutting down freedom of speech rights to advance their own interests in your society, then your society is not meaningfully different than the dictatorships the Western world tries to contrast itself with. All our stories about living in a free society have been just that, stories, fairy tales. That's what they're telling us with this mad rush to stomp out freedom of speech this past week. They are telling us that we do not live in the kind of society we were taught about in school. They are telling us that the only reason we were allowed to speak as we pleased in the years leading up to the Gaza genocide is because we were a bunch of compliant sheep who were not meaningfully challenging the interests of the powerful. And now that we are meaningfully challenging them, the facade of freedom and democracy is falling away. As Frank Zappa once said, the illusion of freedom will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery. They will pull back the curtains. They will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. When I looked around the Coburg Lake, the people who had come along to the barbecue, the thing that we had in common is that everyone there has been fighting for human rights for 2 years. We have speaking out for the oppressed. We have tried to protect life as much as possible. Those are the people I want to align myself with. And as we come to the end of this year, and we have that momentum of making New Year's resolutions, I hope that all of us can not just make personal resolutions that just improve our well-being. Let's make communal resolutions. Let's all be that little bit braver. Let's be that little bit more outspoken, and let's do something for the people in Gaza. Thank you.